Okay, good morning everyone, and thanks for braving this very cold weather this morning. Because we are on the webcast, and for people who might be listening, I think it would be nice for us to go around and introduce ourselves so it helps them to follow what we're saying. So, first of all, I'm Julie Stewart-Turner. I'm the councillor who chairs Overview and Scrutiny function for Kirklees. And then to my left.
I'm Penny Bunker. I'm from the governance team that supports the meeting.
I'm Councillor Rob Walker, and I'm the lead member for the Economy and Neighbourhood panel.
Councillor Liz Smage, lead member for Health and Social Care.
Cathal Burke, lead member for Children and Young People.
Thank you. And we do have one apologies from Councillor Golfer Massive, who has some family issues to deal with today. But we don't have any other guests, so it's just us today, which is nice. So item 1 on our agenda is minutes of previous meeting. Are we all happy with the minutes as a true record? The issues around items for the next meeting we can discuss later on when we come to the work panel, so that's fine. That's approved. Item 2, do councillors have any interest to declare? No, we're fine. This is a public meeting. Well, it's not. It's a meeting in public. If anybody wants to come and listen and sit in, they are always welcome. There's no private items on this agenda. We have a couple of informal things to discuss later on at the end of this meeting. Findings of the Select Committee on Overview and Scrutiny in Local Government is the first large item on our agenda, item 4, and you have a summary of the report in your packs. So I think we'll start by just going through it one page at a time and see what you think. So any comments on them? So on page 1 of the report, any comments? Starting at page 7, findings of the Communities and Local Government Committee, the Select Committee's views of overview and scrutiny in local government. So we'll just go through. Penny has been clever picking out probably key things she thinks might be relevant to us, and then there's a summary report from the committee there as well. So if we take Penny's bit first, on page 1 of Penny's report, any comments? Bob?
Yeah, one thing that struck me in the last year has been the aftermath of the Grenfell Tower, where there was quite a bit of criticism of the scrutiny work within the council in terms of not picking up the problem with cladding and so on. And it made me just very aware of how important our role is, but it also did make me wonder whether you would pick up on things like that automatically with a scrutiny panel. And I guess it's the highlighting of where you've got potential issues like that could come up.
Any other comments? I think that's important. It is good that people are recognising the value of scrutiny more and more. It is very important. But you're right, it's a complex process, that, and although initially there was a lot of uproar about the scrutiny, we don't know the detail yet. We don't know what information went to which parts of the council, so we're still waiting for the clarification on that. So it'd be interesting to see the final outcome, see what happened. On page 1, the thing that I've underlined is accessing information and barriers to accessing exempt information. I think this picked up also in the summary report when we get to that, and I think that's something I want to make sure we highlight with our senior officers in the council, that scrutiny should have access to all relevant information. Page 2 of Penny's report. Any comments? No? On the main report. Okay, let's go into that. Over the page then to page 11, which is starts with the role of scrutiny and party politics in the organisational culture. Do you want to talk on that? Yes, Councillor Smage.
Yes, thank you. Item 2, the sharing of innovation and best practice across the scrutiny sector. I think that is something that would be really worthwhile for scrutiny committees to do across areas so that we can learn from one another. And I agree that we should heed the lessons of high-profile failures, absolutely, and make sure that lessons are learnt and we don't. Our scrutiny reflects the lessons that were learnt from that. The item 4 about reporting to full council, I think that's actually a good idea. We used to have a scrutiny report to full council on a regular basis, and we used to take scrutiny reports, certain scrutiny reports, certainly we used to take to full council. And I think that would provide good debate on a scrutiny report and what we're doing, and provide our visibility to a wider group of councillors as to what the work programmes for scrutiny actually is. The item about the separation of executive and scrutiny, I think that's really, really important that you have that separation and that it is seen as separate. And the independence of scrutiny committees is a must. I'm not sure about the secret ballot item. I don't think we really need a secret ballot item, but I think it's the independence and that scrutiny is definitely seen and supported separately to the executive. I think that is very important.
Yeah, I must say I agree with the bit about highlighting the bad practice elsewhere, and that's something we're going to raise when we go to CMG, put it in our report to them, just to underline how important scrutiny is. But I agree, reporting back to full council is really good. We've probably done more this year than we've done for a long time. And I've really enjoyed the debates at council that happened. So scrutiny is getting more and more attention. But yeah, we can do more. It'd be good to do more. Yes, Councillor Burke.
It's just to follow up on that, really, what Councillor Smith said and yourself about reporting back to council. I think it's very important for members who've not been involved in scrutiny before, perhaps new members or members who've not taken on any scrutiny role, to understand the work that takes place, the good work that takes place, and the impact it can have across different services. So I think it's important that we do that and engage with full council and get other members engaged as well.
Yes.
What we've seen coming through full council over the last 12 months have been the reports from the ad hoc scrutiny panels. Now we've got the panel structure in, we're not doing so many of those. So I'm wondering if you've any thoughts in terms of how you do bring issues forward to council when we're not generating ad hoc reports particularly.
I think it'd be good to update council on the work that we're doing and the work that individual panels have done throughout the year. Focus it on perhaps ad hocs, but the meetings, discussions that have taken place and where we've made a difference. In a similar way that we report back to Management Committee about the work we've undertaken in the last number of months since the last report that we've provided, I think in a similar way we could do that for full council.
I seem to remember we used to have a system whereby, was it every other meeting, council meeting, there was a scrutiny item or something? A few years ago, there used to be, every 3 times a year, there used to be a scrutiny item, and lead members used to say what the panels were doing and everything. And if we got something coming up as well, we could ask councillors if they wanted to input in that as well in any way, and I think that just gave a better transparency of the scrutiny process across the whole council. Not to say we don't do it here, but it just gave a wider understanding, I think.
Yeah, I would very much support what Councillor Smedge has just said. I think that's really important. I think with some issues it is good to try and involve more councillors. So, for example, on the 15th of March, with the work that we've been doing on transport, we are going to invite all councillors to come along to the presentation from Network Rail about what's happening about the Trans-Pennine upgrade, because really it is of interest to everyone.
Yeah, I tend to agree. They did have a slot on council on a regular basis, but it was short-lived, and it'd be nice to bringing it back. And we do an annual report, but why we can't do a quarterly report or even 2-3 times a year an update, I don't see a problem with that. So we'll work on that one. Yeah. So it's one for our next meeting with the Chief Exec, I think. So over the page 12, comments. Rob, sorry.
Yeah, just before we move on, the point about, I think it's point 4, about the relationship between members of the executive and the panel. I do think that is important, and I do believe that it should be based on we, as lead people within panels, inviting them along to those meetings. But I think for them to come along and to become involved in debate, for them to be questioned by the panel, can be quite useful. I think it's useful to look at how they're working with officers on particular topics and to question what's happening around that.
Yeah, I agree. I like that if there was whatever topics on the agenda, the relevant cabinet members invited to be part of that discussion, but not to sit on that panel on a regular basis. No, they shouldn't be part of the panel. But every time you discuss an item, the relevant cabinet members should be invited to be that. And I think the more they're engaged, the better, because that's the most important role we have is the challenge to the executive to aid the decision-making process. So, yeah. Over the page. Yes, Liz.
Yeah. The access to information, I think these points about access to information for scrutiny panels, the default position should not be, no, you can't have it, it's commercially confidential or whatever. The default position should be that there is a way for that information to be shared with scrutiny, so scrutiny can see the whole picture when it is considering the various subjects that it's looking at. And the use of external experts. Now, we do use co-optees on our panels, and I think that's a good way of getting input from people who have an interest or who in the subject or who are knowledgeable in that subject. I think that is a good way of doing it. And the part about receiving independent and impartial advice to scrutiny counsellors, I also think that is really, really important that we have that, that we do not lose that ability to ourselves do have independent research done and independent advice on policy, etc. I think that is needed. And the member training and skills, the skills for scrutiny, I would say that is something that we need to continue to do, both for councillors and co-optees, anyone new onto a panel, and anybody who's been doing it for a while as well, is good as a refresher to continue training. So.
Yeah, I would strongly support that. And also the points that were made earlier about opportunities to meet scrutiny members from other councils to look at the kind of work that they're undertaking. I think that would be extremely valuable. I think in terms of external experts coming into committees, that has worked better with some committees, some panels rather than others. I certainly feel with my panel this year, possibly because it's new and I'm new to the role, that we perhaps could have benefited by thinking a little bit more about who externally we might have brought in to add to some of the discussions that we've had.
Yeah, I agree with the transparency and the access to information. I think is very important. With training, I totally agree with networking. I think being able to meet others. I receive lots, as we will do, information about different scrutiny training events taking place. They're usually in London. But I think if we had access to that, or we had the ability to take part in more of those, to be able to network, to discuss with other people who've been involved in scrutiny for some time and see how they do things, which we could learn from and share good practice. With the resources, it's the costs, and I don't know how that will impact on us going forward.
No, I totally agree. All information should be available to scrutiny. We're all clever enough to know when something's really sensitive or personal that it can't be public, we know that, but it shouldn't be. You should have sight of everything that's relevant to whatever you're looking at. The point on here I'm not in agreement with, because I agree with nearly all of it, but the one thing I'm not sure is about statutory scrutiny officer. I think scrutiny should be member-led, always be member-led and not officer-led. So I would say it's up to members to report to council and not officers. So that's one bit I don't agree with, but I agree with all the rest of it. And I do agree, going out, meeting other people, learning from other people has been really valuable. So there's lots of ways of learning. It doesn't have to be formal structured training. And if we can't get to Birmingham or London for the big events, then maybe we could host a local networking just within our region or something. Maybe that's something we could look at. I'll definitely play around with that idea. Okay, over the page, next one. Yes, Rob.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think increasingly you see that a lot of the critical decisions are actually made at regional level. And I think meeting with colleagues, for example, the work we've been doing on transport, it would be good to meet scrutiny members from other council members within West Yorkshire to look at what's happening. I think that would help in terms of the insight, but also in terms of questioning what's happening.
Just on that West Yorkshire, I don't know what other panel networks are across West Yorkshire for other panels. I mean, on the health and social care side, we have a system of scrutiny across West Yorkshire. And so I think we need to look at what other panels' systems can be for looking across that West Yorkshire-wide viewpoint as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that exists for things like transport, but what I'm not aware of is how does the scrutiny work that we do here feed into that cross-combined authority scrutiny work? From what I can see, there isn't much linkage there at the moment.
I think you're right, there isn't formal mechanisms, and that's something we're going to be discussing at our next formal meeting, public meeting. I think there's problems with combined authority. Until we get a proper organised devolution deal, it's difficult for them to make any headway, but we want to be making sure we've got our thoughts and ideas and our processes in place so we can play an effective role when there is established. So definitely. Right, over to the rest of the next page. We've got role of the public, scrutinising public services and scrutiny of combined authorities. Liz.
I think the role of the public is really important. In the health world, they talk about triangulation of information. I think actually, from a scrutiny perspective, we need to hear those who are commissioning services, those who are running services, and those who are receiving services, so that you get that full picture of information. And it's how we actually ask for information from members of the public about something we're scrutinising. I think we need to look at how we do that. We have done it in the past. I can remember the social isolation ad hoc we did, that we went out and asked, and we went out to meet various groups, etc. on that. So we've done it on particular areas. We've done it in joint health scrutiny committees, but it's how we do that more widely. So if we're a particular subject where we're wanting that full information, that we have a mechanism for doing that that's not onerous and not on people's time as well. And that goes to scrutinising provided by external bodies. It's that commissioning, providing, and service users. I think that goes to that point as well.
Any other comments on that page? Rob?
Yeah, I think points 19 and 20 are very important, and I agree with what it's saying here. I think that we should have some power to scrutinise other bodies that are providing public services. So, for example, in transport, you've got national bodies like Network Rail, and then you've got organisations like Rail North and Transport for the North, who are making massively important decisions about what's happening in terms of transport developments. And we don't have, even as council, any direct representation on something like transport for the north. And I do believe it is profoundly undemocratic that we don't have some opportunity to scrutinise those kind of organisations. On to 20, I think about the local enterprise partnership. Again, I think there should be an opportunity to question them about the strategies that they're pursuing, because it has a very important impact on an area like Kirklees. Yeah, so I would support those recommendations. Yeah.
Anybody else? I really like that comment. The committees must have be able to follow the council pound. I thought that really spells it out dead right. And anything that we commission with public money, we should be able to scrutinise it, which will include commercial operations that are delivering public services. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Okay. So apart from that, we've got plenty of comments there. Penny.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Clearly, we've not had the formal response from the government to these recommendations. So, for example, the issue of exempt information would require some change in the law. You're entitled to it where it relates to the issue that you're looking at. So there's some aspects of it, the statutory scrutiny officer role, for example, having someone who's part of the senior management from an officer perspective would put scrutiny at that table. But again, would be some other changes required. So I think we'll have to wait and see what comes out of the government response as well on some of this.
No, but I think it's nice that we be able to share some of our reflections on it, and think there might be some things we can do on a local level to drive things forward. Yeah, it's useful. Okay, so we're on to item 5, scrutiny lead member reports. And I owe you all an apology because I missed the deadline. I've lost track of my dates. I missed the deadline for my report to go out for the public agenda, so I'll pick that up later. But we have first on our list got Children's Services. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chair. So this report takes you through the activity from November to February and the work of the panel. So the last dates we met were December and 29th of January. The main highlights of those meetings were the visit to drop-in centre, Safeguarding Children Board annual report, which the Chair came and presented to us, Ofsted, and that was the letter following the October visit, school transport, special education needs, and also the performance monitoring from Q2. The outcomes of the panel had previously requested more meaningful corporate performance information to allow members to understand improvements in areas of concern. This work is in progress and will be available at improved format, hopefully, in future meetings. The panel were invited to attend Safeguarding Board meetings following the consideration of the annual report. Panel members were visiting the Duty and Advice, previously known as the MASH, multi-agency safeguarding hub, to explore how the new front door arrangements are working in practice. And panel members will also visit a meeting of head teachers and governors to explore their experience of accessing social work advice. The panel will also visit a children's home, and that is taking place today. The panel will request that any future school transport policy return for consideration before implementation. The monitoring work that's taking place at elective home education ad hoc is ongoing and will report regularly to the panel. First meetings, I think, hopefully take place next week. We've got two provisional dates in place to begin that work. The panel will continue to receive regular updates following Ofsted visits, receiving minutes from the Improvement Board and Corporate Parenting Board, and the Chair of Safeguarding will also return to panel at 6 monthly intervals to update us on the work. Councillor Bellamy will be attending the scrutiny representative at the Improvement Board because the dates were changed, so we hope to have a representative at all of those meetings going forward. The panel have been asked to consider the new children and young people's plan, and it will be considered at the meeting in April, and the SEND anticipated Ofsted visit. Panel meeting. Next meeting is on the 5th of March. On the agenda we've got school transport, elective home education, the SEND initial briefing and quarter 3 performance monitoring. We're also now working closely with Councillor Kendrick, following some of the changes to Cabinet members. She is working also with senior officers to ensure that we receive the relevant information in a timely manner and get the officers at the meetings that we need.
A couple of points. I'm chuffed that you're getting out and about so much, and it's really good to see Scrutiny getting out of the committee rooms and into services. It's good. I'm really chuffed that you've got Councillor Bellamy attending those improvement board meetings. But when I used to go to them, I think it was so hard to keep up with the pace of change. If you're not at that table, it's really hard to keep up with what's happening because it's such a diverse and complex service. One thing that I want to pick up with you is the CSE panel and the corporate parenting. I wonder if you'd had any more thoughts or discussions around that being embedded in scrutiny rather than having separate panels, because we looked at, do we need to change that relationship, and have you had any further discussions on that?
Not as yet, but I think I've got a briefing with the Cabinet member, Councillor Kendrick, coming up, so I think that's an opportunity to discuss that as well. And at the meeting next week, we have the opportunity to discuss how we can do that and work together to make it more effective. So hopefully next week we should have an update.
Any more comments or questions for Councillor Beck? No? Move on. Next we've got Councillor Walker. You've got economy and neighbourhoods. There's a lot on here which have been through and read already. So if you want to just pick out any updates or highlights, that'd be good, yeah?
So the two main topics that we've been focusing on this year have really been housing and transport. They're both quite massive agendas, really. On the 14th of December, the panel meeting focused on the issue of specialist housing and in particular looking at extra care housing. So we had a presentation from that. We questioned officers about how things were developing and also the Cabinet members. Following on from that, we set up a reference group and we have been on visits to Crossland Moor and Meadow Green to have a look at the provision, some of the provision which already exists within Kirklees. There is still quite a bit of work to do around that. There are also the other housing issues. There's the issue about allocations policy, which we're currently still doing some more work on. It's interesting as well that there's a lot of change taking place within the council in terms of the work of officers and the level of focus on the housing issues. So quite a bit of time has been spent behind the scenes questioning both Cabinet members and officers about what is happening, how that's shaping up for the future. We're going to return to that for the meeting on the 15th of March to get an update on some of the things that are happening and to question some of those developments. So that's the housing side of things. The other area that we've been focusing on really since Christmas has been transport. The meeting on the 18th of January focused on the developments in terms of what's happening with railways. So we were looking at the changes that are happening with the new franchises which are coming in May, which are going to lead to very significant changes with timetables. We looked then at what's happening in terms of the Transpennine upgrade. It was expected that the announcements about that would come out sometime in mid-February. It's not happened yet, but we are going to be pursuing that further in March with Network Rail. We also looked at the longer-term plans which have come out from Transport for the North and had a look at that. We did express some concern that Kirklees and Huddersfield and Dewsbury, our main towns, did not seem to feature very strongly in that report. And one of our views was, how can we make our voice heard, really, in terms of what's happening with those long-term plans. The last meeting that we had on the 15th of February focused, again, on fairly strategic level, looking at what's happening in terms of road developments. We had a presentation and quite an intensive debate questioning officers about what's happening and how our concerns in Kirklees fit in with a wider agenda of what's happening across West Yorkshire and the north of England. So the follow-up from that's going to be at the next meeting, where the first part of the meeting we're going to be really trying to tie together some of the debates that we've been having earlier in the year. And then the second part of the meeting is going to be a private meeting where we've got the senior manager of the Trent-Spanine upgrade who's coming along to present to us what's happening, and we will have the opportunity to question them about that.
Any comments or questions for Rob? Me, again, just nice to see Scrutiny getting out. I like that you visited the Meadow Green Lodge and Sandy Mount, see yourself. That seems really good. And I think the idea of getting transport for the north here in Kirklees is excellent, to allow everybody in Kirklees to have the opportunity to contribute. So it's all positive. Thank you. Yes?
Yeah. One thing I have learned from this is that carrying out scrutiny work at a time when there's a lot of change in policy and in terms of structures within the council and responsibilities is quite interesting. It's probably quite a good time in some ways to look at what's happening, but you are dealing with something that's changing all the time.
Yeah, it is. And it is moving at a rapid pace, so you've got to be really on the ball. It's a quite demanding role, so you know you're doing a good job. Okay, we move on to Liz, yours.
I think there's just a couple of points that I would highlight. We looked at wheelchair services in Kirklees and made a number of recommendations and actions for the CCGs that we hope will improve user experience. So we look forward to receiving the feedback on that as to how that has worked. We also looked at the Kirklees Suicide Prevention Action Plan in February, and I do hope that the Coroner Service can facilitate public health officers accessing information that they need to help inform that prevention action plan. The Yorkshire and Humber Children's Cardiac Scrutiny Panel met, and it has been agreed that that work has come to a natural conclusion now. There is a report that's due later in the year on whether the Leeds Trust has been able to reach certain levels of standards that it needs to get to during this year. But how we deal with that will be discussed when that report comes out. And in March, we've got the results of the podiatry consultation coming back from Locala. Okay.
Any comments or questions for Liz? No? Rob?
I probably should have read the report beforehand, but I'd be really interested to know what the major recommendations were from the wheelchair chair service review, because I have had a number of my ward residents who've approached me about this and concerns about it.
We can forward that through to you. Okay.
And yeah, that might be something that would be nice to share with council as well, because you did invite councillors to contribute. So it might want to be one of the nice things to take back to council and share with everybody else. But I think there's follow-up on another item for council, the mental health stuff. We need to schedule that in as well.
Maybe it would be good to circulate it when we've got an update as to where they are with the actions, so that we can say what the recommendations are and where they are, which hopefully will be in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
No, that's excellent. And it's nice to see you've got, you can hand over your West Yorkshire thing. It's nice to tick something off your list and give yourself a break. Yeah, well done. Right, so we've got two more, and we'll start with golf fans, but because they didn't get out in the public agenda, I'll have to read them. So this is on the corporate panel. Panel highlights the 15th of November meeting. The scrutiny panel received information on the community asset transfer policy with Paul Kemp, Service Director for Economy, Regeneration and Culture. plus Joe Tingle, Strategic Lead, Assets and Capital. The panel also received a presentation from Michelle Nuttall, Head of Transformation, on the following items. The scope of the transformation portfolio in 2017-18, how progress is being monitored, including financial monitoring, tracking key milestones, capturing non-cashable benefits, self-assessment, some of the lessons learned that could be applied elsewhere. 13th December meeting, the panel received a presentation on the progression of the procurement project, which was a strand of the transformation programme, from Jane Lockwood, Procurement Strategy and Advice Manager, and Julie Moscroft, Service Director, Legal Governance and Commissioning. The panel also received an update from Jackie Gedman, Chief Executive, on the Council's adoption of a commissioning approach to service provision. Recommendations issued. In relation to the transformation programme update, 1, the programme should show a clear separation between budget overspend and attainment of savings generated part of the transformation activity, and 2, that there should be a mechanism in place to ensure that demand risks are identified and there is clarity of the implications of those risks and how they might be mitigated. Looking ahead, financial monitoring, Q3 update to Cabinet is being presented to Scrutiny panel at the 8th of March meeting, and an update on the transformation programme has also been presented at the same meeting. And the Cabinet members attending the last meeting of the panel on the 19th of April to update on progress made against each priorities they highlighted at the beginning of the municipal year. Councillor Assis has rescheduled his performance briefings to align with the new timetable. So that's good. And just in case he gets to listen to the webcast, I had some comments that I'll share with you and him anyway. The transformation of the council is much bigger than any one strand of the transformation programme. It's a big issue, and I don't want everyone else to lose sight of that. So I still want the management committee to have overview of that. And if it looks like the corporate panels picked out the commercialisation and the procurement as key elements of that for them to focus on, I think they're really important elements, and both of them deserve a lot of attention, procurement and commercialisation, and it'd be good if they would focus on that, and we can then maintain the overview of the whole transformation of the council at this level and the management committee. So I hope that's okay with everybody. Got nods? Yeah. So we'll make sure he picks up on that, and you might see it. Oh yes, Councillor Walker.
I think one thing I completely agree with the points that you've made, and I think one thing to be aware of, probably going into the work of the panels next year, is that that has a big impact in terms of the council's overall economic strategy. And I think the links need to be made with the work that's also going on in the Economy and Neighbourhoods panel, whoever's chairing that, whoever's leading on that next year.
It's good. Yes, Ms. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, and there's also transformation in the health and social care side as well, with health and social care needing to come together more by 2020. So there's also work that the Scrutiny panel is picking up on that as well. Okay.
Yeah, it was just on the highlights, panel highlights, in relation to community assets transfer, the most because I know Councillor Goldfarm has done a lot of good work in this area, but it would have been interesting to get an update to see how things are progressing. So hopefully at the next meeting we'll be able to do that.
Okay. Hopefully he'll see the webcast and he'll share that with. Otherwise he'll get the minutes, so we'll try and give him a nudge. Right, I've got mine so as well, which I'll share with you. I've got some handouts too for you. So on the highlights report, I attended the Centre for Public Scrutiny conference in December and picked up a lot of useful information, some of which I've already shared with lead members and with scrutiny officers. I was particularly impressed by the representatives from Rotherham Council who talked about the journey they've been on over the last 3 years. I attended workshops on housing and finance, hoping to get useful information for our panels. The housing one was more about tenant engagement than housing issues, but did highlight the difficulties on regenerating areas that aren't in council ownership. The finance one talked a lot about commercialisation, which seems to be a new direction of travel for many authorities, and I think it would be a good idea to explore that in more depth at a local level. And just as a side issue, I think there is quite a bit of learning we can pick up now through the Centre for Public Scrutiny on that, so hopefully Councillor Asifik will have the opportunity to explore that as well. I also did a tour of the police station on the 8th of January and a catch-up with Steve Cotter, Chief Superintendent. He's very keen to work in partnership with the Council, including Overview and Scrutiny and other agencies. And he's amazingly proud of his teams, the direction of travel that they're going in, and he's especially pleased at being able to boost the neighbourhood policing, which I put boosting neighbourhood policing soon, and I think that's for about mid-March. They should influx the new neighbourhood police. And he introduced me to a new mental health expert that he's employed. He's giving advice on cases, a lot of cases. They're not obviously people with mental ill health, but there are complex issues, and his advice has helped smooth the way forward on many investigations already, so he's having a big impact. I've had lead member briefings with Chief Executive, and I've started inviting Councillor Sheard and Councillor Pandor to those meetings. Julie Musgross, Legal Officer, always joins us as well. We discussed forward planning, and there's a lot of effort going in to do the best possible forward plan. And we've benefited from the learning from Rotherham. When I met with Jackie, I was talking about how impressed I was with Rotherham. She'd only been there the week before herself, and she's been quite impressed with them as well, so it's good. I've suggested that we do outcome-based accountability training for all councillors, and it was agreed to be a good idea now that it's becoming more embedded in many services. And we discussed the quality of information and attendance at children's services at the children's panel, and it was agreed that it could be better. Messages are going out to senior officers that scrutiny is a must-do, not a nice-to-do. And I was told that the frustration from a scrutiny point of view is also shared in other services, as the children's services is struggling with so many changes in a short amount of time, but they are working hard to overcome their issues. So I don't know if you picked that up. Is it getting any better? I don't know, afterwards. We also discussed comms, and it was agreed that the overview and scrutiny page on the council website should be replaced, and the scrutiny team would look to do more around Facebook and Twitter. I'm told that comms is under review, as many are struggling to keep up with the demands and looking at how this fits with the Democracy Commission findings. I also talked about the transformation plan and need more members to understand it and for it to be embedded across the council. And I invited Shabir to attend an additional meeting of scrutiny, which we're going to talk about the scheduling for that soon. I had to agree 2 urgent items. Well, I was pleased to agree 2 urgent items during this period. One was the business rate pooling pilot, which that had to be an urgent item because the short timescales coming from the government office meant they couldn't meet the usual advertising period. And provision of ICT in schools, the broadband provider to several schools across Kirklees went into receivership at short notice. So our officers were keen to try and make life as easy as possible and smooth the transition to schools. So from an outcomes point of view, me and Penny are booked to go to CMG in April to promote scrutiny and improve understanding and to try and build confidence in officers to embrace scrutiny. We expect to see outcome-based accountability briefing at full council, a future full council meeting. We expect to see an overview and scrutiny page on the council website soon. I'm going to share some learning from the Centre for Public Scrutiny Conference with lead members and officers. Kirklees is likely to benefit from the business rate pooling pilot financially, and the quick and innovative response from officers enable schools to have a continuity of broadband services with more security and at a better financial rate. And I've not been able to do the monitoring of panels or sort of observing of panels because of illness, but what struck me what I have seen is that we could do with reintroducing the action monitoring log, and we've got it on today's agenda. for later on to look at. But that might be something that's useful to have at all panels so that people can more easily track any agreed actions and see the evidence of the benefit scrutiny. So that's me. And before I share, I've got these handouts from the conference to share with you. And first, I'll give you these. Excuse me. Oh, that's for health. And sadly, there isn't one for children's. Oh, no, but it was nice of you to help anyway. No, that's fine. That's housing. That's for golf. This is one side. If you wouldn't mind giving these out, though. You're a star. There's one each for these. One each for these. One each for those. One each for those. This is a two-page one. Yeah. It's a two-page one. So I've handed out was just the notes from the meetings, and the health one, I didn't get to do the health workshop, but when I've read through the handouts and the notes that come with it, I think those handouts could be useful for everybody to have a look at, because some of the useful tools and guidance is in there. I'll get to that one. That diagram you've got, this is talking, because the conference called the Governance of Complexity, and you won't be able to see the detail on it because it's too much detail on it, so I'll have to get you a bigger one, or I can email it through to you because I've got it electronically. But I thought it was fun because although it's relating to obesity, it also highlights the complexities of making any decision in such a volatile environment that we're in, and it can relate to everybody. So I thought it was quite fun, and it helps you understand all the different factors involved in making any decision to try and for the benefit of the public outcome. So and it's quite good fun. The other ones, you've got the intended outcomes. I thought it was a useful diagram talking about the different issues, because we're all focusing on outcome-based accountability now, and this diagram, this little circle here, highlights all the different factors in making a positive outcome-based decision. So useful. The other ones I thought were just fun. These pictures of showing you what's expected of a 21st century councillor from a Centre for Public Scrutiny point of view. You've got to be about 6 people in one there. That's on a quiet day. And this one is, and this 21st century public service, it's just how complicated it is now, weaving in and out of working with other organisations. It's just quite fun. But I thought they were good. Anyway, that'll do for my lead member report. Have you got any questions, comments? I think Carl, then Liz, I think.
Thank you, Chair. It was just on your briefings and the discussions you've had around children's services. We have found it extremely frustrating since we started the work this year, trying to make progress, trying to get the relevant people to attend the meetings, trying to get the reports in a timely fashion, and this has led to a delay in the work that we've tried to do. When we have had the reports and the updates and the officers attend, it's been really worthwhile. So because of that, it is frustrating when we don't receive the information that we need, and we don't have the relevant officers attend the meetings, despite numbers of invitations sent out, details about what we require. It's difficult to make progress and to do the work that we need to do. I'm just referring to your notes, the frustration about what's been going on, and that it was agreed that it could be better. It could be an awful lot better. And so what I'd like to know is what is going to happen, what's going to take place to improve things, who's leading on this to ensure that when Scrutiny put in requests for officers to attend meetings, produce reports, who's going to ensure that actually takes place. We were given these guarantees at the beginning of the year when I met the Chief Executive that things would change because I had frustrations and concerns about how things were done previously. So now that it's not really happened as good as... And I understand the changes that have happened, but I think what we want to see is who's going to lead on it, who's going to make sure that the officers attend, we get the information that we need, and that we can, you know, make some progress and make a difference.
And I think it is the Chief Executive that should be leading that, because that's who I discussed it with, and she said she would pick it up with officers. She said she'll put a message out to all senior officers that scrutiny is a must-do, must be supported. So what would be helpful for me is if you can let me have any examples of barriers you had, any particular issues or officers or things that you struggled with, and then I can have a more detailed discussion with her.
Yeah, and I've also discussed briefly with Councillor Kendrick as well. She has her own concerns as well, so I'm having a briefing with her. I think it's next week, and we can certainly pass on the details. Because we've been left at some meetings where we haven't had any officers. Sometimes we've gone down to a third choice to come. They come, not equipped with the brief needed in order to be able to give us the information. So, and this has happened on numerous occasions, so hopefully things will improve as suggested.
And you're right to be frustrated because it isn't good enough, and we need to keep on pushing that message. Okay, Liz, and then Rob.
Mine was only a small point, actually. The Overview and Scrutiny web page. Can we just clarify? Because on the council website, it is a source of information for previous scrutiny reports, that the actual web page and the access to previous scrutiny reports is available. I can understand the Twitter and the Facebook being more mobile and agile, etc. But the actual website being a place of source of information about scrutiny and previous scrutinies that have happened. Yeah.
Penny, you have the delight of working on that, don't you?
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. Clearly there are an awful lot of previous ones, so we'll have to find a proportionate way of doing that, but particularly having the more recent ones easily available. But also stuff like how we do scrutiny around here, perhaps information about being a co-optee. So yes, I don't think we'll have something that's quite how it used to look, but I think we can do a lot better than what we have at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, Rob?
Yeah, I'm very concerned really about the fears of Councillor Burke in terms of what's happened in terms of the representation of senior officers at the panel this year. I think it's such an important issue. It is something that we really need to ensure there is an improvement, because this is a critical journey for the council. We've got to improve children's services.
No, you're right, quite right to be concerned, and we'll keep on pushing that message between us and try and work together to sort it. Yeah. Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, let's move on to the agenda plan then. We're looking forward on the agenda. We've got 2 meetings. Hopefully we've got 2 meetings booked in. We're coming back together on the 12th of March. We're looking at crime and disorder. Corporate approach to fault, is that still on? Corporate approach to fault? Okay, and then any updates from yourselves. Then April, we need another meeting because we need... Sorry, one other thing. What about scrutiny? Oh yes, work of the combined authority scrutiny function. Next meeting has to start at 9:30 instead of 10, so we can fit everything in. But Councillor Light's coming to that as well to talk about the work that of combined authority scrutiny panels. And then 8th April meeting, I'm hoping you can all do the 13th, is it? 13th.
Yeah, that's the date that's been circulated.
That seemed to be the date that suited most. I know Councillor Asif can't do the 13th of April, but it seemed like everybody else was okay for that. And it says that inclusion and diversity strategy is coming to that meeting, but also it should say, talking about council transformation with the leader or the deputy leader as well. on there. So is that all right? Okay. Yes, Penny?
It's probably too short notice to be expecting leader member reports on the 12th of March because the agenda goes out at the end of this week. So could I suggest that those go to the April meeting, the final lead member reports?
That seems to work better because nearer the end of the year you can do an end of year summary, couldn't you then? Is that right? Okay. Any comments? We all right with that? Right, arrange it for future meetings, we've done that. And I think that's it for our formal public agendas. So we'll call that a day, and thank you for your contributions.